Assalamu alaikum, and good evening to everybody in the UK, and welcome wherever else people are in the world. It won't be evening everywhere. Um, wish you all a happy new year. Some of you are probably already entering the new year as we do this, and other people will be entering the new year later on this evening. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa sallim. Now, New Year is an interesting time. It's a time when people look back over the previous year and reflect on what they have done, and look forward to the year ahead and plan ahead. At least that's how I believe is the best way to approach the new year. Now, people are going to have different approaches to this. And there are also those such as one of my sheikhs, Sheikh Mohammed Adil, who says that there's nothing special about the new year, that it's just a day, and then you will pass over and the days will continue and life will continue as it does before. And he is of course right in a sense. This is true. Now, Sheikh Mohammed Adil doesn't celebrate the new year. But then it doesn't mean he doesn't celebrate a new year. He just celebrates the Islamic New Year, which of course has already passed. Now, what this is really about is just when people count the beginning of the year. And that will vary from one culture to another culture. So, of course, you are going to find that some people, they will mark the new year on the what is actually a Roman calendar. This normal calendar we have, which is going from 2020 to 2021, this has become a standard calendar around the world. And even though there are local calendars and regional calendars and religious calendars which are different from it, it has sort of become the standard calendar that is used for business activities, at least, all around the world. And whatever anybody says, of course, that's important. Because if I make an appointment with any of you and say, I'm going to meet you on the 2nd of January at such and such a place, at such and such a time. Now, we have to know what date is the 2nd of January. If we don't know when the 2nd of January is, then we can't meet up. And even if it is, the 2nd of Rabiul Awwal or something, you have to have a standard date. You have to know when that is. Because if you don't know when that is, you can't meet the person and what you want to do won't happen. So it's very important to have a standard calendar, just for organization and life and business purposes. One can't say that the calendar that we use, which, yes, it is a European calendar, it originated in Europe, but one can't say that it is a wrong calendar inherently just because it's different from the Islamic calendar or the Jewish calendar or the Chinese calendar or any of the other calendars that exist in the world. Some people will say, but the Western calendar is based upon the solstices, and that is a pagan tradition. Well, they are, of course, right. It is. It's a solar calendar, so it's based upon, when we pass from 2020 to 2021 this evening, or apologies if you already have in other parts of the world, all that means is you've been on a 365 and a quarter day journey around the sun. On Earth, we've 365 days around the sun. So we've got back to where we were originally. It's just marking going round in circles around the sun. That's all the solar calendar does. The Hijri calendar marks its days according to the new moons and doesn't have any correction. There are some lunar calendars, such as the Jewish calendar and the Chinese calendar, which they actually have some kind of correction to bring it back in line with the seasons. So, for instance, you will have an extra month or an extra leap month or something, which will bring the calendar back in line with the seasons, which is very important if you live outside of the tropics, because of course we do have seasons, and going on the Western calendar, we have to plant our crops in March, April or May, depending on what they are. Otherwise, we won't get a harvest in the autumn. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the opposite way around. You'd have to plant your crops in maybe August to September and October in order to get a harvest in April, May and June. But either way, it works depending on where you are. You need to know when those dates are if you live in a temperate zone. This is why we follow a solar calendar in Europe. If we just followed a pure lunar calendar and we didn't have any other kind of calendar, it would make farming extremely difficult. So some people might say, oh, but this is a pagan thing. And the pagans, they had the solstices. They marked the middle of summer and the middle of winter. Christmas here is just after the winter solstice. The New Year ceremony that we currently celebrate is, again, it's 10 days after the winter solstice. So you could say it is marking a pagan festival, because there would have been a pagan festival on the solstice. But the solstice is just an astronomical phenomenon. It's just when the sun is at a certain point in the sky, which is actually because where the Earth is going around the sun. Now, of course, in the past, people marked a pagan festival at this time, but it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it, because it's just an astronomical phenomenon. It's just like in the morning, it becomes light, and we call that morning. Now, some people, they may have had a pagan festival at that time, going back a long time ago. Doesn't mean that the morning, there's anything wrong with the morning. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with doing Fajr prayers just before dawn, which also marks the morning, although Muslims decided to pray just before the dawn instead of at the dawn or just after the dawn. But it's still marking that particular time of the day. One thing I would like to mention, I think I have mentioned before in my posts, maybe in my Sohbets, is, when we hear the word pagan, we have to understand, where does this word pagan come from? And I'm also aware, for very young viewers, pagan also means something different again, because in the slang which our youngsters speak, they also have another meaning of the word pagan. So let's get to what pagan actually means, rather than what it might mean to some young people or what it might mean to other people. Firstly, pagan was a word that was given by Christians to people who were not Christians. So that could be anybody following their traditional religion. At various times, it's even been applied to Muslims by some Christians. So be very careful when you hear someone talking about, oh, but that's a pagan tradition, or that's a pagan festival, and we should have nothing to do with it. Understand what the word pagan means. Understand who first applied it. It was applied by the Christian church to anybody who wasn't Christian. Predominantly those people who were following a pre-Christian religion. Then later on it was applied to various heretics and even Muslims at times. It just means people who are not Christian. So it doesn't mean evil. The word evil has a different definition to the word pagan. So if someone says something is a pagan thing, it doesn't mean it's necessarily an evil thing. And bearing in mind, when you use the word pagan, you are using a Christian description for something. So it reflects a certain Christian opinion of something, whether that's a festival, whether that is a belief, whether that is a tradition, whatever it is. You are not using an Islamic definition. You are using a Christian definition. And according to Christian definitions, certainly according to some Christians, they would define us Muslims as a type of pagan as well, because we're not Christians. Now, I'm not talking about your more balanced, middle-of-the-road kind of Christians who do interfaith, but the more sort of heavy-handed evangelical ones. Some of them would describe us as pagans. So be careful when you use a word and understand what it means. Actually, as for pagan itself, I mean, even, the Hajj pilgrimage that is part of Islam, this was done by pagans before Islam. So some people would describe that as a pagan festival. Of course, it was altered by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and all the idols were removed from around the Kaaba, but there is something from it that is from a pagan festival. So don't think that just because something is pagan, it's necessarily evil. It's just the way Christians describe things that were not Christian. So we have to be careful of that. And, I've seen too many videos, I've heard too many people talk about things, and especially like when the solstice comes round, or when Christmas comes round, or New Year, and people start talking about the pagan connections. Well, it doesn't mean it's evil. You've actually got good pagans who are good-hearted people. And I'm talking about people who follow religions other than the Abrahamic traditions, who they might like have a reverence for nature or something, and try to live their lives in harmony with nature and with the seasons. And they do some prayers to Mother Earth and things like this. But they're not evil people. Now, I'm not suggesting that we go and do those things because we're Muslims. But at the same time, we have to understand, it's not something that Islam would oppose either. If a group of people want to do that, who are not Muslims, we're not opposed to them. They're free to do that. That's not our business. Obviously, we will invite them to our way, which is always the Muslim way. We give dawah. But at the same time, if that's what they want to practice, if that's what they believe, we'll leave them to it. And we shouldn't have any particular worries about them because it's not evil. And there's a difference. And too often people associate the word pagan with evil, instead of understanding, well, what is evil and what is pagan? They are two different words. They have two different meanings. They're referring to different things, even if sometimes they're referring to the same things. And yes, there are some people who follow pagan traditions that might be evil. But there are also people who follow pagan traditions which are not evil. People who are very good-hearted, who want to do good things. And that's to do with people who are following the religions and practices themselves. But then there's a lot of cultural practices that, because culture and religion is intertwined, that they will have some connection. And even New Year is one of them. The New Year's celebration that we are celebrating tonight has some pagan connections. And if people say that to us, don't deny it, it's true. But it doesn't mean that the festival is necessarily pagan. That depends on what your intentions are and what you do on the day. Or on the night, in this case. Now, I think one of Maulana Sheikh Mohammed Adil's concerns is that people now overemphasize this New Year festival and ignore the Islamic New Year festival. Now, as Muslims, if people do that, they should be careful of that, because of the two, which one should have more significance to us? Now, when it comes to calendars, I'm not saying that one calendar is right and one calendar is wrong, because they are just counting different things. A calendar is a record of days, and it is a record of the years. It is a way of counting. So it's like, it doesn't really matter as long as it's an accurate calendar, it doesn't matter from an administrative kind of perspective, whether you're using a lunar calendar or a solar calendar, Chinese calendar, the Jewish calendar, the Christian calendar. It really does not matter as long as it's accurate and you know what day is what day, because otherwise it's pointless, because if you don't know what day it is, then that becomes a problem. And there is some confusion also at times with the Hijri calendar because of when people mark the beginning of the month. And I'm not going to go into that now. But it does mean that it becomes less reliable for people to use. And that's something that maybe our scholars want to think about and reflect upon, and how to resolve, so that people do find it to be a reliable calendar. Because there's no reason why a lunar calendar should be any less reliable than a solar calendar. But a calendar is just counting a record of the days. So we can't say that the Islamic calendar is inherently superior to the Western solar calendar, or the Chinese calendar, or the Jewish calendar, or any other kind of calendar, because they all do their job. And of course you've got the Mayan calendar as well, and other kinds of calendars. But whichever calendar people use, it has to be accurate, and it has to be functional, otherwise it's pointless. However, obviously as Muslims, the Hijri calendar marks what? I mean, why is it called the Hijri calendar? Because it marks from the date of the Hijrah, when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ travelled from Mecca to Medina. And this is where Islam really began to take root and to start to build something. So as Muslims, it should have more significance to us than a calendar which is not associated with our beliefs and our traditions. But at the same time, that does not mean that we shouldn't use the Western calendar. And it doesn't mean that the Western calendar should have no significance to us. Because obviously it is the calendar which all our business, all our appointments, and everything is recorded, even today in most Muslim countries. So, and there's nothing wrong with using both, because especially, I mean, if you are a farmer, you depend upon the Western calendar. So, it's something to be aware of. Some people actually depend on this. The other thing to bear in mind is, obviously, for people who are coming from a culture where the Western calendar is an import, then they won't celebrate New Year. It won't have so much, or they might not. It won't have so much significance for them. And there's nothing unusual about that, because that's not part of their cultural heritage. But someone like myself, who happens to be British, and all my ancestors for at least 2,000 years or so have been recording the years according to the solstices and according to the Gregorian calendar, and before that was it the Justinian calendar, and other kind of solar calendar, then this we can also see like Celtic monuments which mark the solstices. So the Celts used it before the Romans. So it's something which my ancestors have been using for a long time to record the years. So we can't just throw it out. Perhaps other people might just say, okay, the date's changed, but it has no significance to them. But for people like myself, where it's part of our cultural heritage, we're not going to approach it in the same way. And not saying anything wrong with people who do approach it that way, but we won't, because that's not how our culture works. And if we're respecting everybody's cultures and everybody's cultural heritage, we should respect that. Now, there is also another concern about New Year, which Sheikh Mohammed Adil has raised at times, and that's, he's very diplomatic about how he does it, but I can understand what he refers to, and that's when people, they just go out and they have a good time, they get drunk, they get messed up, basically, just for having a good time according to how they understand having a good time. But actually they are harming themselves. They might not realize it themselves, but they are harming themselves. So it depends what we do on New Year. I mean, if you just watch some fireworks, spend some time with some friends, have a good time, but not like with alcohol, not getting drunk, not doing anything haram, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you do things which are harmful to yourself, which are sinful, which, will get you into trouble, then obviously there's no benefit in those things. There's no barakah, and there's no benefit in the other sense. So this is what we should be avoiding. And of course, I'm well and truly aware, although people don't discuss it, there are people who do those things on Eid as well. Even though Eid is definitely not supposed to be about getting drunk or, partying and doing crazy things, people do. So we should be careful of those activities, whichever day of the year it is. And, try to live our life in a clean way, because if we do so, it's good for our health, it's good for our mental health, it's good for our well-being. It's good for our relationships in the long run. People might not think it is, because they will think, well, maybe I can't socialize with some of my friends because they're always people who drink. And if I don't drink, maybe I can't be friends with them anymore. It will affect our friendship. Well, not necessarily. I mean, I have friends who drink. I don't drink with them, but I have friends who drink and they're still my friends. But at the same time, if your only friends are people who just drink and, maybe do drugs or do other things which are not good, not beneficial, and are harmful, maybe you should make new friends. If they're the only people that you are associating with. Because, we are affected by our company. And just because some people, drink and do drugs, it doesn't mean that everybody drinks and does drugs or does these sorts of things. I abstained from these things for a long time. Even before I embraced Islam, I was already cutting back on drinking and smoking, because these are not good for me. They were harmful, and I was already starting to come to my senses even before I embraced Islam that this is not good for me. And so for the past 20 years I've avoided drinking. I don't even miss it anymore. I found alcohol is a custom taste. If you don't drink it, you don't really fancy it. Now, for some people, they might miss that, but it's a custom. It's things that you get accustomed to, and you can get accustomed to things which are actually good for you as well. And maybe we should ask ourselves: is it good to get accustomed to things which are bad for us, or good to get accustomed to things which are actually beneficial for us and will help us in the long run? All of this is our choice. I mean, one day we will have to give an account to our Lord, but in the meantime, all of this is our choice. Allah has given us choice. So we can choose what actions we take. We can choose whether we have that glass of wine or that pint of beer. We can choose whether we smoke that spliff. It's our choice. And yes, if you got addicted to something, it becomes more difficult. And that's another problem with alcohol and drugs, because people get addicted to them. And some people might be surprised, why am I talking about this in a Sohbet? But these are real issues on the streets in this country, and not just here. Even in Muslim countries, people have these problems. Now, if people are celebrating New Year and just getting high and getting drunk, then obviously there's no benefit in that. But at the same time, that does not mean that you can't celebrate the New Year in a halal way. And it doesn't mean that the New Year will have no significance to you if you don't take part in those activities. When the New Year comes around for me, I look back over my year, I reflect on what I've done, and I pray for the next year. There's nothing wrong with this. And, maybe I'll watch some fireworks as well, which again, there's nothing wrong with fireworks. But it depends what we do. And I was saying the same thing when it was Christmas as well. It depends what people do on Christmas. If people, again, get drunk, overindulge themselves, get themselves into debt, then what benefit will come from it? But there are halal ways that you can celebrate these festivals. Just like there are halal ways you can celebrate Eid. And even there are haram ways in which you can celebrate Eid. And I've seen it myself. People who've been fasting during Ramadan for 30 days. And then when Eid comes, they're driving around with their girlfriends, getting drunk, getting high. It even happens on Eid. So, we can't just say that just because a festival is not one of the ones within Islam that it's automatically haram. Hi, how are you doing? We can't do that. And on the other hand, we can't say that just because a festival is part of Islam and it is halal, that everybody's going to celebrate it in a halal way. We need to have a bit more nous about us than that. And if people have iman in their heart, if they have the right niyat, the right intentions in their heart, then they will make good plans. And they will celebrate things in a beautiful way. And they're not going to be doing things which are haram or harmful, and regardless what day it is. So some people might be asking, why have I got my Christmas lights up? Although anybody who watches me on a weekly basis will know that these have been up since maybe one of the Eids before last Christmas, and I had cleaned them actually. I dust them off, but I actually keep them there, and I use them when I do the Dhikr now. I like the lights. What's wrong with decorating our house with pretty lights? There's nothing haram about it. And yeah, we can put them on for special occasions. But, people can overreact to some things. And that doesn't help anybody. I remember, someone was commenting on my Facebook, and they were putting all sorts of comments from previous scholars. And some of them are great scholars, and I would respect them in what they actually teach. But at the same time, when it comes to Christmas, these scholars were quoted as saying Christmas is haram. But they're just opinions of scholars. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with these scholars. It doesn't mean I don't respect them by saying that these are just the opinions of scholars. What I mean is these are just the opinions of scholars. They are not ayah of the Quran, which are unambiguous ayah of Quran. There are also opinions of scholars which say it's fine to celebrate New Year, it's fine to celebrate Christmas. So, let's not get into that. And, someone else commented and said, well, can't we just enjoy the day and stop arguing? It certainly isn't my intention to be arguing with anybody. If people ask questions, I will answer their questions, or I'll respond to them in some way. Sometimes giving a direct answer to a question isn't always the best way, because sometimes people ask questions in such a way that they are trying to trip you up and get you to say something which then they can use against you. And this is all about their own intentions. It's not my intention to go around asking people questions in order to trip them up, in order to make them look bad. One has to ask, why do people do this? And why would people feel threatened by me discussing some of these things? If I'm nobody, if I'm not a scholar or a sheikh, or this is what these people are saying, why are they worried about what I'm saying? If you don't think that I have any qualification or any ability to be able to discuss these issues, then why do you feel threatened when I do? That's something for you to think about. And I make no claims. I'm just an Englishman who embraced Islam 20 years ago, and following the teachings of my sheikhs, and following according to what I've learned from the Quran and from my research that my sheikhs instructed me to do. If you don't accept what I'm saying, if you don't accept then this advice, this guidance, whatever I'm saying, is not for you. But clearly there are people who are asking me to answer questions. There are people who are, in a sincere way, they're trying to, use some of my knowledge and experience to help them. They are benefiting from it. So it's not fair for other people to keep interfering and, just making the trouble. I'm not making the trouble. The other day I spoke I responded because some people sent me videos that a sheikh sent me. Actually, no, some people sent me videos of a sheikh that were sent to me. And the sheikh had a different opinion to the one that I have. And I was not disregarding his opinion. I was not saying he has no right to that opinion. And I was not saying that the opinion doesn't have validity to it. Because I recognize it does. But I also recognize it's not the only opinion. And sometimes I do answer things in a way different to what some people may expect. Because just like some communities have their heads, they have their leaders from those communities who answer things according to what those issues within their communities are facing. So they will answer things in a certain way that they believe are relevant to their audience. It's not necessarily the only answer within Islam. And they are entitled to answer the questions in the way that they answer them, as long as they don't say that that is the only answer, when there are in fact other answers, when there are in fact other valid opinions, because that's when it creates a problem. Now, the sheikh whose video was sent to me the other day wasn't saying that. He himself acknowledges that there are other opinions, and he was just expressing his own religious opinion according to what he understood and what he had learned. I wasn't knocking that. So it's important that before anyone responds to anything, that they should listen to what the person is saying. I listened to what the sheikh was saying, and I responded to the sheikh, who happens to be a personal friend. I responded to the points, basically, and why I differed from what he was saying. That doesn't mean that I'm saying that he is wrong and that it's not a valid opinion. And if he is asked about what I've said, he may not say that what I've said is wrong, or he might. Who knows? But I haven't spoke to this particular sheikh since this incident, so I can't say. But I have known him for many years, and I don't think he would respond in that way. So, for other people to get involved in a situation, which doesn't even need to be a situation, because this is an issue which there has been diversity of opinion on ever since the early days of Islam. So why shouldn't there be diversity of opinion today? And sometimes I do highlight alternative religious opinions which are out there, because if certain religious opinions are promoted to other communities, because we're not just one monolithic Muslim community, there are different Muslim communities within the UK. Just like you've got the Bengali community and the Pakistani community and the Arab community and these different cultural communities. And I'm not saying I'm advocating that there should be different communities either. I would actually like people to come together more. But I also recognize that that's only going to happen with understanding and respecting that diversity. It can't happen if, people, they are saying that our way is the only way. Our answers are the only answers. Because invariably they are not. If they were, we would only have one madhab in Islam. There wouldn't be 4 established madhabs today. There wouldn't be, historically, there's something like about 80 odd. According to what a talk from Sheikh Ali Gomar I listened to a few years ago. There's about 80 odd madhabs. Most of them you never hear of, because a lot of them are small or they've died out. But, blimey, 80 odd. And there were 4 established ones within Sunni Islam. There's also the 12ers within Shia Islam, which is recognized as a valid madhab and taught in Al-Azhar University. So Al-Azhar actually teaches 5 madhabs, and the Ottomans also taught 5 madhabs, which included the main Shia madhab of the 12ers. And today there's all sorts of rhetoric out there about the Shias and saying that they are not Muslims and this sort of thing, which it's not a good thing to be promoting. I mean, how are we going to create understanding between different brothers and sisters within Islam if some people are saying that a group of Muslims, this group or that group of Muslims, are not Muslims and that they're outside of Islam just because we differ on a few opinions, even though we all believe that there's only one Allah and that Muhammad ﷺ is his last and final messenger? There's some people who still say, oh, but they disagree on this, they have something different, so because they have something different, then they are not Muslims. This is making takfir, and it's not good to be a takfiri. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ himself warned that if one person calls another person a kafir, one of them definitely is. And if it's not the person who is being called a kafir, then it is the one that is doing the calling. So this is something that we should always be very, very careful of as Muslims. Don't just saying a whole group of people aren't Muslims. Don't be so quick that just because a scholar or a sheikh or an imam or someone says something that is a bit different from what you expect, oh, he's teaching wrong, he's not on the haqq, oh, he's outside of Islam. Don't be saying like this. You could be putting your own akhirah on the line by doing that. This is why, if anybody ever wonders, I always exercise caution before I even suggest that someone isn't a Muslim. Even people I really disagree with, and I'm talking about people I really disagree with, not what happened the other day, but, you know, I don't go around saying that they are not Muslim, because that is a very dangerous place to be. And when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ himself gave a clear warning about something, then we should be very careful about that. As something as serious as whether we ourselves are a Muslim or not, depending on what we say to someone else. That is something to be careful of. And it doesn't mean that we have to agree with, the other person, that, their Aqidah is exactly what we understand the Aqidah to be, that their fiqh is exactly what we understand the fiqh should be. We don't need to agree with every detail of that. But the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that if you see someone doing something wrong, you should make 72 excuses for them. What does this mean? It's in English we have a simple phrase: you give people the benefit of doubt. Unless there is very clear reason and someone is really doing harm, you give them the benefit of the doubt. You leave the matter with Allah. If you want to have a quiet word with them and ask them what they meant, and can they explain what they are saying in a better way, alhamdulillah, this is a good thing. That is helping us to understand each other. That is a good thing. But when it goes further than that and people are asking leading questions and trying to silence people who are saying things which they disagree with, when they don't even know if they themselves are right, when they don't even know if they themselves have all the answers. I mean, how often do I go around and saying that, this person should shut up, this person shouldn't say anything, that this person is wrong? It's not my approach. If I have a disagreement with someone, I want a discussion with them, or I do some research to see, firstly, do I think I'm right in what I'm saying? I'll question what I am saying first, before I question what someone else is saying. Wa alaikum assalam. Because, we don't know. And, I've seen pictures of people who they are pointing in their posters like this. I don't normally point like that. Because the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not point like that. He didn't point like that with his finger. And when you point like that with your finger, bear in mind that there were 3 fingers pointing back at you. You point at someone else, you're pointing 3 fingers back at yourself. So maybe you're questioning something in someone else, but there could be 3 points or more that you are wrong on. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he pointed, he always pointed with his whole hand. He gestured with his whole hand in a kind of welcoming way. But there's a poster I've seen online around Christmas time, and one of these big evangelical type Muslims is pointing like that at the audience, and declaring something about Christmas being haram. I mean, what kind of approach, what kind of attitude is that? I mean, it's almost like, he's like, follow me, do exactly what I say. We read in the Quran that among the Jews and the Christians were some who took their priests and rabbis as lords over them. Are we not doing that today with some of our mulanas, with some of our imams, and making them lords over us? Be careful. When Imam Malik was asked, do you want to make your fiqh the official fiqh? He backed away from it. He didn't want to be put in that position. Because he knew he was human. Maybe as great as Imam Malik is, he knew that maybe I could have made a mistake. He's not a prophet. He didn't think, he didn't want someone saying, that everything that Imam Malik said is absolutely right. And, maybe in his case it would be like someone could be following Imam Shafi or Imam Hanbali or Imam Abu Hanifa or Imam Jafar as-Sadiq, and following a different opinion on something. And because it's different from Imam Malik, then if Imam Malik's fiqh had been made the official fiqh, they would be oppressed. There's a very strong teaching within the Quran and within the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ about oppression. Look, Fir'aun was an oppressor. Fir'aun was an oppressor. The Quraysh were oppressors. As Muslims, we are not supposed to become oppressors. If we become oppressors, we become a Fir'aun. If we become oppressors, we become like the Quraysh. So we have to be very careful how we actually handle ourselves. And especially the more influence or power a person has, the more careful they need to be. Because people are listening to you. People are listening to what you are saying. And everybody makes mistakes. But it's one thing to make a mistake and be open to having a discussion that maybe, there's a better way of understanding things, or understanding things from different perspectives. And it's another thing to make a mistake and to say that this is the only way and you must follow this. And if you don't follow it this way, then you're not with us. You're not following Islam properly. Or worse, that you're outside of Islam. That becomes a very dangerous situation. And if people who have that attitude become too powerful, then that can be very dangerous. And here I'm thinking of people who have very large followings, or have done in recent years, and go around the world preaching and complaining against other religious leaders like pastors or swamis, and making them look bad, condemning their beliefs, and even stuff that is tenuous. I mean, I was listening to one of these people a few years ago, Dr. Zakir Naik, I may as well say it, and it was a Hindu Swami who he was talking to, and the Hindu guy was actually making more sense than Dr. Zakir Naik, and was being more understanding than Dr. Zakir Naik. So, and yet he was so adamant in his position, and his followers were just accepting what Dr. Zakir Naik was saying and thinking that the Hindu Swami is wrong in everything he's saying. No, the Swami is probably wrong on some points, but the thing is, it's the attitude. It's, were people even listening to what he was saying? Certainly the people who are fans of Zakir Naik were not following what the Swami was saying. They were not listening carefully to what he was saying. They were not listening in a balanced way. And that's when we start to take our leaders or our preachers as lords over us, instead of listening to people. It doesn't matter whether the person is a Muslim or not. If they are speaking, if it's part of a discussion, we should listen to both parties, see what they bring. Don't have to agree with everything, but at least listen, give them that respect. And sometimes you will find truth comes in the most unexpected places. And we should acknowledge a truth, even if it comes off the lips of a Christian priest, or a Buddhist monk, or a Hindu Swami. We should acknowledge the truth when it is the truth. Otherwise, we ourselves become munafiqeen, because we are going against the truth. Anyway, this wasn't what I expected I may have talked about today, but it's strange how we arrived at that. I think we've done enough discussion. So let's focus on the dhikr, which is what we're really here for. And before we start, we make the intention to do this purely for the pleasure of God. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nawaitu labi, nawaitu lusra, nawaitu qawwa, nawaitu litikaf, nawaitu suluk, nawaitu riyada lillahi ta'ala fi hada jami. We start with the kalama shahada. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. We seek the forgiveness of Allah by reciting Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah, 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 astaghfirullah. أستغفر الذي الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه إنه هو الرب الرحيم يا مسبب الأسباب يا مفاتيح الأبواب يا مقلب قلوب والأبصار يا دلائل المتخيرين يا غاية المستحيين يا حي يا قيوم يا ذو الجلال والإكرام وأفريد أمري الله إن الله بصير بالعباد. Rabbi Sharifa, direct your heart to the heart of your Sheikh. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. صلوات الشريفة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. 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 بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن العسر يسرا إن العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن العسر يسرا إن العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن العسر يسرا إن العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن العسر يسرا إن العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن العسر يسرا إن العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك
فإذا بروس يسرا إذا بروس يسرا فإذا فرقت فالصبر إلى ربك فقب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنكر وذرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإذا بروس يسرا إذا بروس يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب إلى ربك فارغب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. صلوات الشريفة بسم الله الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. 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 بسم الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي قد اتيتني من الملك ولم تني من تمويل حديث فطير السماوات والأرض أنت ولي في الدنيا والآخرة توفاني مسلما والحقني بالصالحين. آمنا بالله صدق الله العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. إلى الشرف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وآله وصحبه الكرام وإلى الله أنبياء والمرسلين وقرب إسرائيل وإلى أئمة أمواه وإلى مسيقين في tariqat Naqshbandi العالية كستاني رآني قواجقان. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. There is only one God. In Arabic, no God but God. La ilaha illallah. 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 وعبد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. ذلك تدير العزيز العليم. 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 ذلك تدير العزيز العليم ذلك تدير العزيز العليم ذلك تدير العزيز العليم حسب الله ونعم الوكيل ولا لا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نور محمد صلی اللہ 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 نور محمد صلی نور محمد صلی اللہ 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 حسب الله ونعم الوكيل ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم إلا الشرع في نبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وآله وصحبه الكرام وإلا واهي سيري سرتينا وصديقيون الفاتحة بسم الله الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين
the remembrance of God. In Arabic, Allah. Allah, 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 Allahu Allah, 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 Allahu Allah, 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 Allahu 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 Allah, 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 Allah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Who
who, 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 Huck, 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 hey, 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 hey. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. Allahu Allahak, 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 Allahu Allahi, 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 Allahi ya Qayyum, 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 Allahi ya Qayyum. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. Calling on Allah's beautiful names. Yahu, Yahu, Ya Daim. Yahu, Yahu, Ya Daim. Yahu, Yahu, Ya Daim. Allah, Yahu, Ya Daim. Ya Daim, Ya Daim, Ya Daim, Ya Allah. Ya Daim, Ya Daim, Ya Daim, Ya Allah. Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Allah. Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Allah. Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Allah. Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Allah. Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Allah. Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Allah. Ya Ghafar, Ya Ghafur, Ya Ghafar, Ya Ghafur. Ya Ghafar, Ya Ghafur, Ya Ghafar, Ya Ghafur. Ya Sata, Ya Fata, Ya Sata, Ya Fata. Ya Sata, Ya Fata, Ya Sata, Ya Fata, Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Allah. Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Allah. Ya Mu'id, Ya Mu'id, Ya Mu'id, Ya Allah. Ya Mu'id, Ya Mu'id, Ya Mu'id, Ya Allah. Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Allah. Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Allah. Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Allah. Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Allah. Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Rahim, Ya Karim, Ya Rahim, Ya Karim, Ya Rahim, Ya Karim, Ya Rahim, Ya Karim, Ya Hannan, Ya Mannan, Ya Hannan, Ya Mannan, Ya Hannan, Ya Mannan, Ya Hannan, Ya Mannan, Ya Dayyan, Ya Subhan, Ya Dayyan, Ya Subhan, Ya Dayyan, Ya Subhan, Ya Dayyan, Ya Subhan, Ya Subhan, Ya Sultan, Ya Subhan, Ya Sultan, Ya Subhan, Ya Sultan, Ya Subhan, Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Allah. Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Sultan, Ya Allah. Ya Salam, Ya Salam, Ya Salam, Ya Allah. Ya Salam, Ya Salam, Ya Salam, Ya Allah. Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Allah. Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. 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 والسليم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد 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 والسليم صلي ربي والسليم على جميع أنبيائه ومرسليه وعلى كل أتباعه والحمد لله رب العالمين على أشرف الأنبياء سيدنا محمد صلوات على أفضل الأنبياء سيدنا محمد صلوات على أكمل الأنبياء سيدنا محمد صلوات صلوات الله وملائكته وأنبيائه ورسوله وجميع خلقه على محمد وعلى آل محمد عليه وآله السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته ورضي تبارك وتعالى عن سنتنا شعب رسول الله أجمعين ولتبين بهم بإحسان ولمجتدين أبدين ولعلماء المتقين ولأولياء الصالحين وعما شيخنا في تركات نقشبندية عالية كان صلوات وهم الزكية ونور الأجرة البركة ودى الله تعالى علينا من بركاتهم وعفويتاتهم دائما والحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وسلم. O Allah, shower your blessings upon the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his noble family, his noble ancestors, his noble descendants, especially the Ahlul Bayt, especially Imams Ali, Hassan, Hussein, Zayn al-Abidin, Jafar as-Sadiq, and all of the Ahlul Bayt. And also upon the Anbiya, the previous prophets, and also the Sahaba Ikram, the Khilafa Rashideen, the scholars, the saints, and especially my Sheikh, Sufi Abdullah and Maulana Sheikh Nazim, Ya Allah, raise their stations in your divine presence and bless their souls for all eternity. O Allah, shower your blessings also on Sunan Gurung Jati and all of the Wali Songo, and Sheikh Yusuf, and Kiai Adang Badruddin, and raise their stations in your divine presence and bless their souls for all eternity. O Allah, shower your blessings also on my beloved father, Richard Kevin Armstrong, and raise his soul in the heavens and bless his soul for all eternity. O Allah, shower your blessings upon my mom, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, and all of my cousins, my nieces and nephews, my brothers and sisters, my aunties and uncles, and everybody in my family. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, forgive everyone, bless them, grant them life and blessings. Ya Allah, grant them to be those who are still with us to be in good health and well-being, and those who have left us, Ya Allah, forgive them. Ya Allah, forgive them, have mercy on their souls. O Allah, shower your blessings also on my beloved wife and our children, Sophia, Athena, and Elizabeth. Ya Allah, bless my family. Ya Allah, grant my family to be under your divine protection and blessing. Grant us to be in good mental, physical, and spiritual health, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, grant us to never stray after we've been guided. Grant my children to never stray too far from the path, and to return back to the path which is good, wholesome, and blessed for them. Oh Allah, shower your blessings, also, especially on my friends as well, those who have been with me through thick and thin, especially Sheikh Robin and his family, Sheikh Amran and his family, the Sheikh Hisham and his family, Sheikh Abdul Hamid and his family, Sheikh Mohammed Adil and his family, Sheikh Noor and his family, Sheikh Mohammed Amin Evans and his family, Sheikh Dawood and his family. Ya Allah, Sheikh, bless also Dr. Khurshid and his family, Rafiq and his family, Nasa and his family, Davinda and his family, Sakonda and his family, Dippy and his family. Bless Martin and his family, Sean and his family, Johnny and his family. Bless Alex and his family. Bless Hamza and his family. Bless Mohammed Abbasi and his family. Oh Allah, bless everyone in my circle of friends and however people are connected to me, whether through the Naqshbandi tariqat, the Association of British Muslims, Nahdlatul Ulama, the University of Birmingham chaplaincy, however people are, or through my interfaith and interfaith networks or social media, Ya Allah, however people are connected to me, let this as a means through which they may be connected to my sheikhs, and through my sheikhs, through to the Prophet Muhammad and through Prophet Muhammad to your divine presence. Let this be a channel of communication and blessings with them, and divine support, Ya Allah, and make things easier for them. And whatever difficulties they are facing, Ya Allah, make things easier for them. And everybody who's suffering from illness at the moment, Ya Allah, give them health and well-being. Especially my friend Dr. Safi, Ya Allah, grant him a swift recovery to good health. And also Nuning's husband, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, grant them to be in the best of health and well-being soon. And bless all their families with good health and well-being. Ya Allah, bless everyone in our human family. Grant us your forgiveness, Ya Allah. Grant us an end to this coronavirus, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, grant us an end to all these lockdowns and restrictions and tears, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, grant us that we may be grateful when these things end, Ya Allah. And that we may remember you, Ya Allah, and not go back to making mistakes and things after we have, learned from these experiences as well. Ya Allah, we know everything is a test in this life, and these are tests like other tests, Ya Allah. Let us learn from these tests, let us take what is good from these tests, and come out of it much better human beings, Ya Allah, better people, better Muslims, better believers, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, forgive our human family, shower your blessings on our human family, and grant us to be inspired with guidance in our hearts and our minds, that will inspire us to do great, beautiful things for our human family and for creation, that are consistent with your Sunnah, Ya Allah, your way, Ya Allah, what you want us to live, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, guide us in this way, to a more harmonious way of dealing with things, Ya Allah. One which brings us in tune with our environment, and, in harmony, Ya Allah, so that we are not constantly making these problems, Ya Allah. Let us learn from our mistakes. And forgive us, Ya Allah. Forgive us for our many weaknesses and our ignorance and foolishness, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, forgive us all. Forgive people for their arrogance. And Ya Allah, forgive us, Ya Allah. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وسلم سلم ربي وسلم على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين والكل أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم بارك وله نور ما ترى له هدية ووسيلة من أي روح نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإلا أنبياء وإلى أولياء كزتني روحي شاه نقشبند وإلى الشيخ عبد الله فايز الدغستاني وإلى زندبي وإلى صوفي عبد الله وإلى مولانا الشيخ ناسي وإلى مولانا الشيخ هشام وإلى كياي دانك بدر الدين وإلى قسطو وإلى الشيخ داود وإلى الشيخ بادشاه وإلى الشيخ حبيب الله وإلى الشيخ محمد وإلى الشيخ نور وإلى الصعيوي السنتين والصديقيون. الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Yeah, I wish everybody a happy new year. Let's pray that the new year brings better things than 2020. In all likelihood, this virus is still going to be around for the next 6 months, but let's hope through the course of the year that things do improve and we start to get back to something a bit more normal, something less concerning and less oppressive. الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. And I will see you tomorrow with my Friday reflections. But this is the last you'll see of me this year. So I wish you all of the very best. And may the new year be filled with blessings for you and your families. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.